Hey guys, it's Goosebumps Completionist, and I'm bringing you another book review. And this time it's coming from the original 62, book 51, Beware the Snowman. This is a fun wintertime story for what it is. This is one of my childhood favorite books. I remember reading this one over and over again when I was younger, and I'm glad I actually own this book now, and I'm able to reread it and review it for you guys. For the longest time, this book and the more and more and more tales to give you goosebumps were the only winter slash holiday themed Goosebumps books they had. That's up until Most Wanted Special Edition 2, 12 Screams of Christmas, which I didn't get my hands on this year to read it, but I'll try to read it at some point later on in this channel's life. But I did own this and I wanted to read it because it is winter themed. It does capture that atmosphere on a snow day in the winter when it, builds up a bunch of snow, you go outside and you build a snowman and all that. It captures that environment. But it's not really set in a everyday town, as we'll get when I go into the plot a little bit. So anyway, let's get into the plot without spoiling too much. So Jacqueline is this girl from Chicago. She lives with her Aunt Greta, and the reason why she lives with her Aunt Greta is because I think the book said either her parents died or disappeared. Something specific with the mother. The mother's not around anymore. I think she passed away. And she became in custody with her Aunt Greta in Chicago. Well, her Aunt Greta one day decides to move her and her niece, Jacqueline, to a town in the Arctic Circle called Sherpia. And Sherpia is the hometown of Aunt Greta and Jacqueline's mother. And Jacqueline has a hard time acclimating to this new environment. It's snowy all the time. The people, there's not a lot of people, her age. She does meet a few friends. I think Eli and a girl named, I want to say her name is Josephine. I can't remember off the top of my head. If you know her name, please let me know in the comment section. But she does meet two friends her age, so it's not all that bad. But she realizes something's off about this town. And the reason why she's so unnerved about this town is that every house has a scary snowman in the front yard with a scar on its face. And the more the story goes, for a couple chapters, you're learning about this town and kind of taking in the scenery, what it may look like. It's near a mountain, like a big mountain range, and the town is kind of set up like a small village almost. All the neighbors know each other, kind of situation. And Jacqueline's just not having the cold. She does not like this whatsoever. But while she's there, she keeps getting reminded about this saying her mother used to tell her before, I guess, she passed away. And this moniker is seen throughout this book. It's kind of a missing piece to the element of the urban legend throughout the village of this evil snowman. And come to find out later, I'll get to that in a minute, it has more meaning because throughout the book you're like, oh, she's just remembering a saying, but it has something to do later on in the book that helps her figure out how to potentially stop this thing that may or may not be alive or be true. But anyway, Jacqueline is, trying to fit in. She's kind of a small detective herself. She likes to go and learn things hands-on and experience things firsthand. So she decides to run up to the mountain range one day where people say, don't go, you shouldn't go up there. But she's curious. She wants to go see what's up there, and she finds this house. And there's this really weird man that lives there named Conrad, and he has this wolf that scares the life out of her. And she has an interaction with them, and she runs back to town, and her friends stop her because she's in panic and say, hey, no, your house is there. And basically the middle part of this book starts to become this idea that Jacqueline is trying to figure out this urban legend because she thinks it could be true. And the more and more the story goes on, she learns bits and pieces about herself and her own background in her personal life that have meaning to this town's urban legend about this evil snowman that may be living up in the mountains. So come to find out that there's a couple people saying one thing, couple people saying another thing, but basically there's an idea, whoever it may be or whoever created this thing, there were two sorcerers that created this snowman, and now the snowman has cursed the town. And these people have snowmen in their yards to try to deter the snowman from coming down and wreaking havoc. That's basically the most I can tell you without giving too much away. So it ultimately leads up to Jacqueline discovering where the snowman may be living. And she goes in there, and then there's a huge reveal about Jacqueline's life in the last chapters of this book. Now, she, of course, encounters the snowman, and the climax happens. I'm not going to tell you what happens, but basically a lot is revealed during this. And then the ending kind of leaves on a high note for a Goosebumps book. It doesn't leave it too ambiguous or too open-ended, but it does leave it on a high note. And it's pretty satisfactory to see what happens to Jacqueline at the end. I think it's a very fitting ending, and it kind of gives purpose to the entire book that has this underlying message of finding yourself. That's what I got, and I think that Jacqueline came full circle with that ending, and I'll leave it there. So, let's get into the strengths. What were some highlight moments in this book? Now, for a winter-themed book based around snowman being the scary aspects, I actually found the snowman to be the least scary aspects of the story, but I found Jacqueline's interaction with her aunt in some scenes, like her aunt kind of surprises her. There's like a lot of jump scare type of stuff in and around this book, especially dealing with Conrad and the wolf. That house scene kind of unnerves me. It's kind of like Cabin in the Woods type of feel. Anybody would get the heebie-jeebies reading that scene, because you don't want to be stuck with strangers you don't know, with creatures that can kill you. It's very terrifying. Also, the town Sherpia just seems like a ghost town, like a very small town where everybody's in your business, and that kind of gives you a sense of uncomfortability throughout this whole story. You can understand that Jacqueline's feeling uncomfortable in this new environment because they're all strangers, and she feels like she has no privacy. And even if she wanted to do something, there's always something in the way preventing her. And that's the scary aspect, because for you to get where you need to go in life, or in general, if something's always blocking you, that's always going to cause frustration. And I think that the more scary aspects feed on that human emotion of frustration and not noticing small details. And you get genuinely shocked when you're in that frustrated mode and you're not paying attention, and then something happens to you that kind of gives you the heebie-jeebies or makes you cringe or jump. It's because you're not focused. And that's what I got with this book. That's the real horror. Now, it is fun seeing a story shaped around snowmen, but to say that the story didn't have some type of plot hole in it is kind of incorrect. So now we're getting into the negatives. This story does have a mild plot hole dealing with the origin of the sorcerers, right? They kind of dabbled into who it was. I don't want to spoil it because it may or may not have something to do with some origins of some characters. But it was never really confirmed who it was, right? Until the very end, and it kind of hinted that, yeah, it may have happened. Also, the real identity of the snowman, how the snowman was defeated was kind of lackluster. But anyway, there was a plot hole in that, like who are the sorcerers and stuff. I didn't really catch on that in the story. If somebody may have caught on to that and maybe can elaborate, that's fine. But as a reader reading this the first time, you're going to go about, I think, a third or maybe halfway through the book when you discover this. And then towards the later half, you're going to be like, whoa, what happened? How did this happen? I thought this was going on. Also, not to mention that Aunt Greta seems a little too passive. And I'm not saying that's a complete negative in this story, but I just feel that she's so wish-wash. And if you have read this, you understand she's kind of flows with the wind type of character. She'll say yay or nay whenever things seem to benefit her, and she's almost so secretive for a basic parent to a child that wants to know something about her parents. You know, you would think that Greta would just tell her the truth, but you know, she never confirms or denies anything. She's hearing all of this stuff about her life from secondhand, and she feels like she can't trust Greta. And I kind of am disappointed the way Greta was written for that aspect. So, yeah, those were basically the only minor negatives I had. So, now it comes down to ranking. Will I rank this book above a 4.5 on a scale from 0 to 5 stars? I don't think I will. I will say it is above average. I will say it's going to get higher than a 4.0 for sure. But where exactly? I struggle with this. You know, I had to deduct a couple points for the way Greta was written and the frustration I had with hearing all of this third person. Like, it just made me dislike Greta. And I know she's not that pivotal to the story, but she's pivotal to Jacqueline's life. And to see an elder, like a caretaker of a child written this way, you know, reading this as a kid, you might not think anything of it, but reading it if you're older and maybe you grew up around some similar situations or you know somebody who's been through something like this, I do not like the way Greta was written. So I deducted, you know, 0.4 off for Greta. I just think that, you know, she's not the best exemplary parent to have. And I'm not saying that all parents have to be exemplary in Goosebumps, but I just feel like she's kind of far removed from your average parent in Goosebumps. I didn't really like that. And then for the plot hole with the whole sorcerers, who are they? Does it really matter? I don't get why they introduced that in the story to kind of drop it here and there, and kind of give you a half answer at the end. It's kind of answered, but it's half answered. I deducted 0.3 off. So I deducted 0.7 off this book, making the score of this book a 4.3 out of 5. Really good book. Very good book. If you are into reading winter-themed books, there's not that much to pick from, but I highly recommend reading this. I think you'll have a fun time. And like I said, the scary aspects are dealing with the villagers more than the monsters, which I think that's a breath of fresh air with this book. I like having a concept of a major villain, but that's not the source of the main scares. Really good. I like the imagery of imagining the Arctic Circle in a small village. It's very different. It's a very different recipe of Goosebumps. I wouldn't say it's my taste or my wheelhouse of Goosebumps that I have grown to enjoy today, but I did enjoy this as a kid, and for young readers, I think you would really enjoy this. And I think that readers 7 or older would really enjoy this book. So yeah, that was book 51, Beware the Snowman. Let me know what you guys thought about the book in the comment section. Did you guys love it or hate it? Let me know, and I'll see you next time.